About 20 years ago, I had just passed the bar, and literally days before, I'd been sworn in, and days afterwards I was summoned by a partner to come up to his big office, and I did that with trepidation. When I got there, he sat me down and he said, "I've got a hearing tomorrow, and I'd like you to do it." He said, "It'll be good for you." He said, "You can't lose. It'll be your first victory." Needless to say, with that, I went downstairs to the library, and this is the days when they had libraries, and I opened books, and I researched, and I shepherdized. And I read and copied in triplicate, highlighted the interesting parts, the important parts for the judge and for opposing counsel, put them in manila folders with the little tags on them for each issue. And I had a stack about that high by the time the sun came up. So I went early to court because I had nothing else to do. And I sat by the courtroom door because it was locked. So I sat there on this wooden bench, plopped my folders down, and as I sat there, looking at my feet, I heard this kind of click, click, click down the marble hallway, and I looked, and there was this old man, and an old man kind of slowly walking towards me. All he had in his hand was a legal pad and a pen in the other hand. And as he approached, I could see he looked just like Wilford Brimley. He had a big white mustache, and he was in a kind of a disheveled tweed jacket. And he walked up to a door, courtroom door. It was just a few feet away from me, but not the one I was going into. And he tried it, and it was locked. So he looked around, and he came over and he sat near me. And he sat right next to me, and between him and between me were the stack of papers. And he sat there for a while, didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything because he was a senior attorney, and I was scared of him. And then he turned, he looked at the stack of papers. He looked at me, looked at the stack of papers, turned back and said, "You know, son, you remind me of a story. Once upon a time, long time ago, there was a young lawyer who had his first hearing, and he prepared all night. And he had a bunch of books with all the relevant law, which he took to the courtroom, and he sat at counsel table with them. And when a senior lawyer, who was the opposing party, came in, the senior lawyer looked at that young man and said, 'Son, looks like you got a lot of law. Better get yourself some facts.'" With that, he got up, this Wilford Brimley-looking guy, and walked off. Well, of course, when my hearing started, it was Wilford Brimley on the other side. And he sat down, looked at me a little bit, got up, and this was a motion I couldn't lose, and this partner was right. It was a matter of law. It was a jurisdictional issue. 3 months had elapsed. The court had no longer had jurisdiction to set aside this default judgment, and it was done. But he told a story. He told a story about the disservice this would do to his client, about what had really happened, about how another lawyer had dropped the ball. All this was utterly irrelevant. Needless to say, he won. Well, that took a long time. That was a long time ago, but it started me down the path of thinking about this. I was kind of angry because I thought I went to law school for a reason. I went to law school to learn how to reason, to do legal reasoning, and that's what we taught. We weren't taught to tell stories. We weren't taught, for instance, to know the facts of or the story behind International Shoe. If you know it, you've got problems. I don't know it. And we may remember the legal principle for which it stands, but we don't know what the story is behind International Shoe because we weren't asked to focus on it. Well, over the years, I've seen story after story after story trump legal argument. And so I got interested in storytelling, and because I wanted to succeed, quite frankly. And I found some stuff, and I want to share it with you. Let's start with some simple behavioral science. Rhetorical argument does not change opinions or beliefs. Rather, stories do. Now, you know this because you live it every day, but as for most things we know, we take for granted, we don't think about it, and science often confirms this. And it doesn't, and what we know is it doesn't work. Science confirms this over and over again. If there's a rational and emotional component to opinions and beliefs, we know that reason alone will not succeed in overcoming or changing that opinion or persuading the person to adopt a new opinion. We know this. We know this because we don't argue with people about issues about abortion because it's not going to be profitable. We don't argue with people about gun control unless all we want to do is yell at each other. We don't argue about people about gay marriage because it's going to, and by argue, I mean use rhetorical arguments. I use formal analytical tools. We don't do that much because it does not change beliefs. As I think it was Thomas Swift said, you cannot reason a man out of a position when he wasn't reasoned into it in the first instance. And that's the truth. Reason does not work, but stories do. Why don't they work? Why do stories work, rather? And stories work because they transport us. They transport us. They reduce formation of counterargument. And let's think about this. When you talk, if I'm telling you the story of Goldilocks, you don't say, oh, no. I beg to differ for 3 reasons. There were not 4 chairs. There were not 3 chairs. There were really 4. And here's the proof of that. You don't do that. Rather, you listen and you are transported into the story. Nor do you scrutinize the message to say, well, I don't know. I don't think that's right. I don't know that I trust you. I don't know that aspect about the chairs being too hard or too soft, that doesn't ring true to me. You don't do that. And you don't resist the narration or the narrator. You give into it. That's stories. So you're receptive to a message. You're open to being persuaded. All right. Furthermore, there's some practical things. You have the option, the experience rather, of processing information more quickly, remembering it better, and understanding it more clearly. So you have the fact that you're open to information because it transports, and the fact that you can utilize and recall that information more effectively. Story, not argument. Furthermore, in story, belief is the default state. What does that mean? It means when I say, once upon a time, you don't say, aha, I'm ready to get 4 points to prove that he's wrong. No. In fact, when I say it, I'll say it again. Once upon a time. I bet more than half of you experience a relaxation and a moment of receptivity because we're trained that way. Once upon a time. That is and you're ready to believe what's told to you in the story because that's how we're trained. Now, another thing that's important is that in a story, the listener helps the teller, or the reader helps the writer. How? They fill in gaps. They take the gaps that we don't put in narrative, and they use their common experience to fill in the gaps, making the story richer and investing their own experience in that story. They invest in the story. It becomes their story. Again, they remember it better. It's richer. It's a richer tapestry. And they have a stake in it because they've created the story in part themselves.